Good day, and welcome back to British Mirror. Right, let's cut straight to it. Imagine waking up to find that Russia's chief propagandist has decided your comedy material, Donald Trump is threatening to slap tariffs on Britain unless we hand over Greenland like it's a dodgy car boot sale, and somehow NATO's turned into the world's most dysfunctional family WhatsApp group. No, you haven't accidentally stumbled into a fever dream. This is just another Tuesday in British politics. Vladimir Putin's right-hand man is currently cackling on social media, calling our Prime Minister panicking Starmer and referring to Trump as Europe's daddy. Yes, you heard that correctly. We've gone from Churchill's "we shall fight on the beaches" to being mocked by Kremlin cronies on Twitter, whilst America's president threatens economic sanctions over an island that isn't even ours. What an absolutely magnificent mess we've found ourselves in. Quick favor, if you're finding this whole geopolitical circus as bewildering as I am, smash that subscribe button. Over 94% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and helps us keep bringing you the political chaos you didn't know you needed. Cheers if you did. Now, back to the absolute pandemonium. So, let us set the scene properly, shall we? Sir Keir Starmer, our esteemed Prime Minister, finds himself caught in what can only be described as the most bizarre diplomatic sandwich since someone suggested Brexit would be straightforward. On one side, you've got Donald Trump, freshly inaugurated and apparently under the impression that Greenland is available on some sort of international property exchange scheme. On the other, Putin's propagandist-in-chief, Kirill Dmitriev, is live-tweeting the whole debacle like it's the season finale of his favorite reality show. And in the middle, Britain, trying desperately to maintain some semblance of dignity whilst the Atlantic alliance crumbles into what resembles a particularly bitter divorce proceeding. Dmitriev, for those blissfully unaware, isn't just some random troll with a Twitter account and too much time. He's the head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund and Putin's Ukraine negotiator. Basically, he's the man you send when you want someone important to deliver your threats with a side of smug superiority. And he's taken to X, formerly Twitter, to absolutely tear into Starmer's response to Trump's Greenland tariff tantrum. His post? Panicking Starmer calls Daddy's tariffs completely wrong. Now, I don't know what's more disturbing here, the fact that a senior Russian official is publicly mocking a British Prime Minister, the casual use of the word daddy in international diplomacy, or the reality that this bizarre insult actually lands because the whole situation is genuinely that absurd. But wait, it gets better, or worse depending on your perspective and blood pressure medication. Dmitriev didn't stop at the daddy comment. Oh no, he went full propaganda mode, declaring that these tariffs prove that leftist, globalist EU and UK elites failed. It's like watching someone play international relations bingo with every conspiracy theory and political buzzword they can find. Never mind that Starmer's Labour government has been in power for less than a year, or that calling the current UK administration globalist requires the kind of mental gymnastics that would win Olympic gold. Facts, it seems, are optional when you're trolling from Moscow. Now let's talk about what actually sparked this three-ring diplomatic circus. Trump announced that starting February 1st, 2026, Britain, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Finland would all face a 10% tariff on goods sent to America. That's right, your traditional American allies, the nations that stood beside you through 2 world wars, the Cold War, and countless other conflicts, are now being economically punished. Why? Because they had the absolute audacity to send military officers to Greenland. The tariff, Trump helpfully explained on Truth Social, would rise to 25% by June unless a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Complete and total, as if Greenland is a slightly used sofa on Facebook Marketplace. Here's where it gets properly mental. Britain sent one army officer to Greenland as part of NATO's security assessment. One, not a battalion, not an invasion force, literally one person in uniform, probably wondering how their career counseling session went so catastrophically wrong. This single officer's presence in the Arctic apparently constitutes a very dangerous game that poses a threat to global peace and security. Let that sink in for a moment. One British officer in Greenland equals international crisis requiring immediate economic sanctions. Meanwhile, Russia has actually invaded Ukraine, but apparently that's just lads being lads. Trump's statement on Truth Social was a masterclass in whatever the opposite of diplomacy is called. Chaos-plomacy? He declared that America has been subsidizing Denmark and all the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration. Remuneration? He's talking about international alliances like their subscription services he's forgotten to cancel. These countries, he continued, are playing this very dangerous game and have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. The risk being, apparently, that Greenland might remain part of Denmark, as it has been for centuries, rather than becoming America's 51st state, or whatever Trump's endgame actually is here. Starmer's response was peak British diplomatic restraint, which is code for absolutely fuming but saying it through gritted teeth. He stated that Britain's position on Greenland is very clear. It's part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and its future is a matter of the Greenlanders and the Danes. Radical stuff, suggesting that perhaps the people who actually live somewhere should decide their own future. He added that Arctic security matters for the whole of NATO, and allies should do more together to address the threat from Russia across different parts of the Arctic. Subtle dig there at the actual source of Arctic instability, not that anyone seemed to notice. Then came the kicker. Applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong.
And this is precisely where Dmitriev pounced like a propaganda-trained cat on a particularly slow mouse. The Russian official has made something of a second career out of trolling European leaders on social media. He's previously accused Britain of interfering in US elections, apparently suggesting this could justify Trump's tariff threats. Because when you're reaching for justifications, why not throw everything at the wall and see what sticks? The man regularly refers to Trump as Europe's daddy, following some comments NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte made about the US leader. It's the kind of nickname that makes you want to scrub your brain with industrial bleach. But here's what makes this whole debacle genuinely fascinating from a political perspective. We are witnessing the complete inversion of traditional geopolitical alignments playing out in real time on social media. Russia, historically portrayed as the adversarial power to American interests, now has its senior officials openly cheerleading for American threats against European allies. Putin's negotiator is essentially running interference for Trump whilst simultaneously mocking Britain for standing by its NATO commitments. It's like watching someone play three-dimensional chess, except all the pieces are on fire and nobody actually knows the rules anymore. The accusations that Britain interfered in US elections are particularly rich coming from Russia, a nation whose interference in Western democracies has been documented so thoroughly it could fill several libraries. But Dmitriev isn't interested in consistency or irony. He's interested in sowing discord, and what better way than to amplify tensions between America and its traditional European partners. Every tweet mocking Starmer, every jab at globalist elites, every use of that cursed word daddy serves to drive wedges deeper into the Atlantic Alliance. And the truly maddening part, it's working. Think about what message this sends to the rest of the world. If you're a nation trying to decide whether to align with the West or hedge your bets elsewhere, what do you make of America threatening its closest allies with economic warfare over an island dispute, whilst Russia's representatives laugh and offer commentary like sports pundits? If you're Ukraine, currently fighting for survival against Russian aggression with Western support, how reassuring is it to watch those same Western nations turn on each other over Greenland? If you're China, watching the Atlantic alliance implode over Trump's property ambitions, you're probably thinking your strategic position just improved considerably without lifting a finger. The timing couldn't be more perfect for Moscow if they'd scripted it themselves. Russia's war in Ukraine has united NATO in ways not seen since the Cold War, leading to increased defense spending, expanded membership, and renewed purpose for the alliance. Putin desperately needs that unity fractured, and here comes Trump, fresh into his second term, doing exactly that by threatening core European allies with tariffs unless they abandon their support for Danish sovereignty over Greenland. It's almost too convenient, which naturally feeds into every conspiracy theory about Trump's relationship with Russia, but let's stick to what we can actually verify. What we can verify is this. Dmitriev and his fellow Russian influencers have turned social media into a psychological warfare playground. They don't need to hack elections or plant fake news stories when they can simply amplify and mock existing Western political chaos. Why create division when you can just retweet it with a snarky comment? The strategy is brilliant in its simplicity and utterly devastating in its effectiveness. Starmer finds himself in an impossible position. Kowtow to Trump's demands, and you've essentially surrendered British sovereignty and NATO principles to avoid economic punishment. Stand firm, and you're facing 25% tariffs by summer whilst being mocked by Russia for panicking. There's no good option here, only varying degrees of diplomatic catastrophe. And through it all, Dmitriev sits in Moscow, firing off tweets and watching European leaders squirm. The broader question this raises is genuinely terrifying. What happens to the international order when the world's primary superpower starts treating its allies like adversaries, whilst its actual adversaries cheer from the sidelines?